Hi, there are birds on my windowsill. Welcome back to my YouTube channel. If you're a returning subscriber, welcome back. And if you're new here, my name's Kenzie and I am so excited you're here. So if you couldn't already tell by the title of this video, today we're gonna be talking about the things I didn't expect going into a long distance relationship. I also make a lot of videos on my TikTok talking about long distance and my experience with it, so if you're not following me there, you definitely should be. So let's just skip all the formalities and get right into the video. So first off, I thought it would be a good idea to give you a little bit of backstory on my long distance relationship and all of that good stuff. My boyfriend and I met in May of 2020 and he was living in Washington. I live in Idaho. And we just kind of talked for like, I think it was like a month and a half maybe, and decided, you know what, we kind of want to meet in person, kind of like each other. So we met up in person in July. Like I said, we met in May. We met up in person in July and we started dating, and thus began our long distance relationship. There were about 500 miles between us, which was a 1-hour flight and an 8-hour drive. Across that like year and a couple months that we did long distance, there were quite a few things that I didn't expect to happen that did happen, and a lot of things that I learned throughout the experience that I wanted to share with you today. So let's get into it. So the first thing that I didn't expect was literally to ever end up in a long distance relationship. I grew up in a decently small town and I went to small schools my whole life. I went to a small private school from elementary to the time I graduated high school, and then I went to a pretty small college. And when you go to small schools like that, it's not very common that you see long distance relationships because everybody just kind of dates everybody. I don't know, I guess I just never really saw people doing long distance, and so I expected like, oh, I'm gonna go to this small high school and I'll find a boyfriend there and then we'll date forever and we'll get married and whatever. And when that didn't work out, I was like, oh, okay, well, I'm gonna go to a small college and I'll meet a guy there and we'll date and get married. And that didn't work out, and I just never expected that I would end up in a long distance relationship in the first place. So when it happened, I was like, oh, okay, cool, that's kind of weird, but sure, sounds good. I don't know, I just always thought that I would meet somebody at school, because in my mind, like, that was the only place that you met people, was at school in college. And so I just thought that's where I would meet somebody and that would kind of be the end of the story. But no, it wasn't the end of the story. So the second thing that I didn't expect to experience when I got into a long distance relationship was how hard it would be to say goodbye. Genuinely, I thought that I was gonna get used to it. I guess I just expected the goodbyes to be something that I got used to. I expected them to become routine, and they literally just got harder and harder and harder every time, which was really frustrating for me because I just thought, like, when am I gonna find this easier? When is this gonna get better for me? And honestly, it just never did, and that was the reality of the situation. The more that you love someone, the more that you care about someone, the harder it is to say goodbye, and that's just kind of what it was, and that was the reality that I came to know and had to accept. So I still very vividly remember some of the hardest goodbyes that we had to do, and those were particularly the ones where I knew that we would be apart for a long time following that goodbye. Every once in a while there were times when we would say goodbye and we would have like 2 weeks until we got to see each other next, and those goodbyes were sad, but they weren't terrible just because I knew that I was going to see him soon. But it was the goodbyes where I knew there would be a long period of time before I would see him next that were so incredibly hard. So the third thing that I didn't expect about long distance was honestly just for it to be as hard as it was in general. And I'm not just talking about the goodbyes, but I'm talking about everything else that comes with long distance. It's funny because before I got into a long distance relationship, I had a couple friends that were doing long distance. One of my really good friends, his girlfriend lived in California, and one of my other friends, his girlfriend lived like across the world. Like, they were doing cross country, cross time zone long distance. And I always thought to myself, like, oh, you know, they complain about it being hard, but it's probably not that hard because at least they're dating somebody. At the time I was single, and I felt like where I was probably the hardest just because I didn't want to be single and I was. And I was like, well, you're complaining about long distance, but like, it can't be that bad because at least you're in a relationship, you know, at least you have a girlfriend or at least you have a boyfriend. And the reality was that, like, no, yeah, it was really hard for them, and I just didn't know it yet, and I was gonna get a little taste of my own medicine pretty soon. Honestly, long distance is so hard. It's one of the hardest things that I've ever had to do. It's not even that committing to the distance was hard. Like, I would make that decision all over again if I had to. It was more just that, like, 75% of the time I was sad. And it was really hard just being constantly sad. I had to do birthdays without him, and that was really hard. If you have to do holidays without your significant other, that's not fair. That's so hard. And even just like a regular Tuesday, like on any given Tuesday, that Tuesday was not good because I couldn't be with my boyfriend. It's amazing how it just affects every single day of your life. Yeah, I really didn't expect it to be as hard as it was. So the fourth thing that I didn't expect about long distance was that it would affect a lot of the other relationships in my life that were in person. I would go hang out with my friends on a Friday night and my boyfriend would call, and I knew that if I didn't take that call, I wasn't gonna get to talk to him for the entire day. I didn't expect it to like interrupt things that I was doing. I would give up doing certain things with my friends because I knew that that was the only night I was gonna really get to sit down and talk with my boyfriend. I would be out and about with my friends and their boyfriends, and I would be having a great time, but I couldn't help but feeling sad because I wanted my boyfriend there too. Ooh, the fifth thing that I did not expect to experience was the amount of anxiety I would feel on the day that I had to leave. Holy crap. I knew that I would be sad. I knew that it would be hard, but I did not expect to feel like I was gonna throw up the entire day from anxiety on having to leave. My boyfriend and I tried a couple different ways of saying goodbye in order to figure out like if there was an easier way to do it, which, spoiler alert, there wasn't. But we tried booking our flights for really early in the morning with the idea that like maybe we could just get up and go and not have to think about it. That worked for the beginning of our relationship, and then eventually I started having these really bad like anxiety attacks throughout the night. And so I wouldn't get any sleep the night before because I was just sort of like watching the clock tick down until I had to say goodbye, and it just was like, it was not good. So then we tried booking our flights for the evening so that like we knew that we had the whole day together before we had to say goodbye, which that was great too, except for the same thing happened. I was just watching the clock the entire day, like counting down the hours. I'm like, okay, well, Trent has to leave at 6 and it's 3, so I have 3 more hours with him. And I was just anticipating this like inevitable sort of looming sadness that I just knew was coming very shortly. I just didn't expect to have so much anxiety. Like in starting the relationship, I really thought that it just was not gonna be that bad. And then it was that bad and more. If you are good at saying goodbye to your person, more power to you, because I sucked at it. And honestly, the anxiety over him leaving got to the point where I was anxious about him coming to see me because I knew that meant that he had to leave. And it was so sad because it just like, it took over our time together, and I would waste our time with one another being scared of having to leave. And last but not least, the sixth thing that I didn't expect to happen going into a long distance relationship was I didn't expect the repercussions coming out on the other side. So Trent moved here where I'm at to go to college. He now lives like 15 minutes away from me, so long distance, at least for now, is over. And I honestly expected all of my problems to be solved when long distance ended, and I expected everything to be happy-go-lucky, and we were finally in like a normal relationship, and I finally got to see him whenever I wanted to. And granted, that did happen. So many of the things that were so hard for the last year went away when he moved here, but there were also some like interesting repercussions that I didn't expect to take place that did when he moved here. And I think the biggest one that I can think of is that I still get anxiety when we have to say goodbye. It's just not like anything I've ever experienced with a boyfriend before. Like I've had boyfriends in the past and I've had to say goodbye and goodnight to them, and like, yeah, it's been sucky, and I'm like, oh, like I don't want to say goodnight, but I have to now, and so, you know, I'll see you tomorrow, whatever. Like I've experienced that too, but this goodbye where I have to say goodbye to Trent, even though I know he's 15 minutes down the road and I'm literally gonna see him in less than 24 hours, even though I know that logically, it's still so hard for me to say goodbye. I still get the anxiety, and I don't know when that's gonna go away. I'm sure it'll go away one day, but it still hasn't gone away, and I have been out of long distance for 3 months now. Anyway, that's pretty much it for this list of things I didn't expect. Honestly, I could make like 80 lists of things that I didn't expect to happen in long distance. So if you liked this video, or if you like videos about long distance or anything like that, hit that like button and let me know that you're interested in these kinds of videos. I think it would be super fun to make a video with Trent talking about his experience with long distance and his perspective. So if you have any questions for the male perspective about long distance or his experience with long distance, make sure that you leave a comment down below asking any kind of question, and I will make sure that we make a video talking about the male perspective of long distance. Don't forget to hit that subscribe button if you want to hang out with me more, talk about long distance more. I make vlogs sometimes, so if you want to hang out with me like that, we totally can. And then hit that bell icon to be notified every single time that I upload. I love you all so much, and I will see you in the next one. Bye, friends.